Time to be creative. Do things all in love for your kids and legacy.
Yo, what is up, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Empower 610, where we
empowering minds one episode at a time.
Let's get it. And before we start this episode, we just want to ask you, if you're a new subscriber, if you could please consider subscribing to the podcast. As of right now, 63.6% of viewers that are watching this are not subscribed.
Wow. So my question is, if you're watching this, if you're reading this, if you're hearing this, however you're tuning into this, what y'all waiting on? Word. Because I'm feeling real judgmental.
And we dropping all these gems, but
dropping all these gems, but they ain't collecting them.
Exactly. But diamonds are made out under pressure.
This is big facts, homie.
All right, word. So let's start this episode. What we talking about today, Nyce?
Well, if you tuned in last time, we talked about life lessons that you learned in your 20s, and I added some of my 2 cents into that. Because obviously I'm in my 30s, so I clearly survived my 20s.
Yeah.
Kind of makes sense, right?
Yeah. You know what's weird? It's because like a lot of people my age and when they're in their 20s, I was worried about my just being 25. Once I got to that tipping point, now I'm 28, and now I'm worried about my 30s. So I think if you're worried about your 30s, this is definitely gonna be an episode for you.
I know, and I'm here in my 30s, turning 40 this year, and it's like, bruh. This is 30, it's ending, and then what's coming through on the side of 40? And then, Hove on Kingdom Come said 40's the new 20, so I don't know what that means for me. But here we are. So we're going to talk about life lessons I learned in my 30s. In no particular order, because I don't need people hitting me up talking about some ranking stuff. I ain't got time for that. Did anybody harass you about ranking?
Ranking? No, not yet.
Okay, well, that's good. That's a blessing.
And if you are harassing us about ranking, you better be subscribed. Only people that are subscribed get to complain.
Yeah, word. Yeah, complaint inbox is only for subscribers, y'all, because I don't want to hear it. No text, no DMs, no rice. You don't eat nothing. We not trying to hear none of that.
All right, so what's number 1 on the list?
I mean, in no particular order. I think for me, being that at the ripe age of 39 and just celebrating this week, my daughter passed her driver's license test.
Let's go, Keeks. I know she
gonna flip out when she heard you called her that.
It's all good. I met her as Keeks. She's Keeks for life.
She's like, nah, I don't like that no more. Don't call me that. Don't call me that. But my daughter passing her driver's license test, so that's like, man, I've really been a parent 16 years, and just so much has happened over that time. So it just really, all these different levels put a lot of things in perspective. So, one of the biggest things for me is legacy and thinking about how much life is different being a parent and, having 2 kids. I have a son and I have a daughter, and my daughter being, 16, it's like, bruh, she's so close to being out of high school, trying to, make sure to drop gems onto her. And, sometimes people will say teenagers are hard-headed and don't listen. And, maybe that's the case in some cases, but I know like how I was as a teenager. So the cool thing is I have the gift of being able to look back and reflect and just trying to, pour in and say things and do things that can impact her, in the long run. Are you in control of your mental health?
Self-love is the best kind of love. Today's gems are sponsored by BetterHelp,
the leading online therapy platform connecting you with over 20,000 licensed therapists.
Helping you getting back to loving you.
Communicate through video, audio, or unlimited messaging. BetterHelp offers you flexible options to communicate with your therapist.
With a simple questionnaire, BetterHelp will match you with the right therapist for your specific needs in as little as 48 hours.
Don't wait to start your mental health journey today with BetterHelp.
Go to betterhelp.com/empower610 for 10% off your first month of therapy with BetterHelp.
That's betterhelp.com/empower610. Thinking about kids and legacy is, doing things to pour into them, but then also thinking about things that, what's going to help benefit, their future. And, me, working at a university, what does that mean for my kids if they want to, go to school, and how does that impact their legacy moving forward, and having access to education, and kind of having that life hack of, working at a university, if you're married, your significant other goes to school for free, no tuition costs. Well, I'll put it that way. And then same with the kids. So, long term, again, it's a way that they can be educated in that setting. But also, like, for me, it's, it's a choice, right? I don't try to force you have to go to school, you have to go to, college to be successful, because I feel like that's the American lie, not the American dream. So, but I feel like those types of things are important. She loves to read. She loves playing sports.
I wonder where she got that from.
I mean, I like to, I feel like, that was something big for both me and her mom to impress upon, reading and, literacy. And she's always been into books. So, that was like a long-term vision, and she's always been ahead academically because of how much she can comprehend and how well she speaks, and being in theater and stuff like that. So, just being open-minded. But now, like, just reflecting back on, these past years, just, there's like, it just really flies. Like, you don't realize because you're so busy. It's like, oh, me having my kids, on the weekends, it's like, there's always so much going on, activities for one kid, activities for another kid, different things going on. And then, next thing you know, it's like, oh, wow, like, I got a whole teenager who doesn't necessarily want to hang out with dad and wants to hang out with their friends, and, not taking it personal too. So, embrace the times you do have for those that do have kids, and, cherish those moments.
It'd be fun. I don't have kids, but I got my nephews, and I feel like just a couple months ago, they were just couple months old, just 1 year old, 2 year old. Next thing you know, they're 3. Next thing you know, they're 4. Now I got another one that's 6. I'm just like,
yeah, yo, it's trippy. And even like you said, like, you met my daughter when she was much smaller, and
oh man,
some videos that she was in, and she did voiceover.
The first voiceover we did, that felt like literally it was just like 3 years ago. And then you get the Facebook memories, and you're just like, what?
It was really longer. You know what I mean? And so that's the trippy part for me, is just kind of like embracing, embracing those changes, embracing what that means, and then, trying to be thinking about, what the future holds and stuff like that. So that's super important.
So my question is, as a parent, they always say, like, no one is ever ready to be a parent. There's no such guide. Yeah, there are books on parenting advice and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. How do you feel like that changed you, especially in your 30s? Because you learned probably a lot on the way. And I think you come from a very specific situation where, like, you're a teacher and you're also a parent. So you've gotten through, like, many levels of different age groups, and you've been in front of them dealing with it. So it's almost like you had practice in a way of, like, mentorship, but at the same time, it's different when, they're living with you and things along those lines.
Yeah. To be honest, like, what was crazy is, like, with me and their mom, I was 23 when my daughter was born. Mm-hmm. So that was trippy, and I was starting grad school. I went to real estate school. So it was just so much happening, and we had just both, finished college. So it was very new for us as, young folks having kids, kids raising kids and whatnot. So, but then the fast forward and, things playing out the way they've played out, it is interesting. And one thing that I've always, like, strived to have is, try to impress upon, reality, and giving things that I didn't have, or, giving things that I did have that I felt like were beneficial. So, helping her establish, a bank account as soon as she could establish a bank account, helping her with having conversations about, like, credit and how those things work, and, adding her as a user on my cards as well to help her establish credit and have that dialogue, make sure she is having that dialogue at home, even if she's not getting it at school, which, they do to a degree. I have a teen version of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and had her read some chapters of it, and even when just talking to her about it, and she was just like, I was like, all right, so what did you get from this chapter? What did you get from that? She's just like, I mean, it just makes sense. Like, it's logical. You know what I mean? So It's cool because, some of these things are high level, so you never really know what they're truly paying attention to. But, when you're talking to them and you find out, like, what they're really taking in, it is very fascinating. You know, and her having a job and working and all that stuff, and just, you know, watching her grow up and be independent is, you know, is really amazing. So that's really the fun side. And same with my son, like just him growing and evolving, and he's almost my height now. And then people see me out with them and they're like, oh wow, like your kids are like really grown. And
Yeah.
people that know me like, oh, I feel like I watched your kids grow up. And I was like, bruh. it's a lot to take in, but you know, I like to embrace it as well. So it's one of those things. Definitely one of those things.
Very nice. Very nice. And I want to know, when it comes to parenthood and also when it comes to having a business, I remember me and you talked about treating your business like your baby and things along those lines. So how would you be able to relate parenthood to business, and also relating it to mentorship? Because you mentored a lot of students in your past. So what are the similarities that you found with that?
That's something I always preach. You know, your business is your baby. You can literally cultivate it by, you know, the time and energy you put into it. So, you know, making sure early on you got to pour a lot more time, effort, and energy into it. And then, you know, being disciplined and diligent with, you know, how much you stick to the script with what's happening with the funds. You know what I mean? Your funds ain't to go out and have fun.
Yep.
It's to reinvest. And so sometimes people fall in love with the profit and then they're not really growing the business. And a lot of businesses fail. I think it's like 60% or 50% fail within the first 3 years. And so part of it is they're not taking care of their infant.
Yep.
You know, you gotta cultivate it. It's got Pampers at first. You gotta really take care of it, keep it clean, have a system. And, you know, just like with having kids, fear's taught. You know what I mean? Kids have to be taught fear, you know, and you see a lot of little kids, they be playing around the stairs, be ready to walk into the street. And if you're not there to kind of be like, hey, no, like how many times a kid got to hear no, right?
Exactly.
Don't touch the stove, don't touch the grill, don't jump in the deep end, you don't know how to swim yet. You know, so much of your parent is making sure you're kind of creating those barriers so that way they don't hurt themselves or worse, right? So, you know, starting a business is the same way. But in that, you know, your cash flow is a big part of it. Having a good idea is, you know, part of it, and how you connect and interact with other people to, you know, drive sales is all part of it. But the important thing too is like learning quickly, learning swiftly. And I know in the last episode we talked about failing fast.
Right.
You know, that's a big part of it. Just like a kid, they start to crawl, they practice walking.
Yep.
What happens? They're always falling. They feel the pain, they embrace it, they get back up, and then they also look at how you respond to that.
I like that.
You know what I mean? So your business is the same exact way.
And
you
then
can only cradle it for but so long, and sometimes you got to let it run and be fly.
And then eventually you grow it to a point and scale it to a point where it's running by itself and you're not even in the operation anymore. You're just kind of guiding it here and there every now and then. Because eventually that's the goal for any business owner, is not always having to be basically a slave to your business, but be able to create something that creates solutions for people, gives back to the community, but also gives you that independence and that freedom that most entrepreneurs kind of go for initially.
Yeah.
Because many of them get stuck in the mix. And I feel like I'm a little bit stuck in the mix right now, but it's just growing pains as we speak, because I'm still very much involved in the business. But eventually I want to get it to a point where I'm more of like I'm orchestrating it. And I can give more opportunity to people that don't have the opportunity, because I didn't have the opportunity when I was coming up. I had to create my own opportunity.
Yeah, and I think that's the big thing, is like, just like with parenting, you have to be aware of the opportunities that exist. And so a lot of times we're not always aware of opportunities that exist. But now, like, we don't really have as many excuses. You're a slave to whatever your habits are, right? So like with kids, you got to expose them to like, oh, here's these books you should read. And then like going out of your way to buy multicultural books, exposing them to different things. Because if you rely on regular culture, regular schools, they're going to whitewash everything.
Yeah. And
to be blunt, that's what it is.
And you don't have control of the syllabus that they're presenting.
Nope.
Because like now, even with math nowadays, they do it differently. So that's the thing where you have to look at the syllabus. You have to be aware of like what they're getting taught, what they're getting taught even through the internet, because now a lot of people get their knowledge sadly off of like TikTok, and some of their financial knowledge on top of that. They're taking financial advice from TikTok that's not necessarily true.
Yep.
So imagine just like a teenager having that and trying to make financial decisions just based off of what they saw on like a TikTok or an IG reel and things along those lines.
Yep.
So that's like new different battles that you have to face as a parent that probably, decades ago they didn't have to face, but it was always like a different type of platform.
Yeah, and they're overexposed, like just think like 70, 80 years ago when TV was just first developing.
Yep.
It was like magic in a box.
Yeah.
So now everybody looked at it as, oh, that's facts. That's Bible. That's on there. They would never do this. And you still have people that believe that. Now you have, I hate to say it, but I remember for a while on Facebook, I would have old heads sending me all types of like madness in my DMs of links to check out. I'm like, this is not even a true article. It even says that, it's one of those websites that it's satire.
Yeah.
And you're looking at this as if it's real, so people don't necessarily like to read the fine print, but consume everything but question everything too.
Yeah. And so to kind of transition into the next one, what would you say, in no particular order, is your next kind of thing on the list that you learned in your 30s? And I think the one you should go over specifically is time, which we briefly went over, because you had time on the top of your list and I had health on the top of my list. And I know they correlate together and we spoke about that, but kind of go into deeper of why in your 30s you feel like time is more important.
I think just it's literally the most valuable asset any of us possess, right? Like if you have money and you have time and you think about it, like you're investing, the decisions you make are an investment on what can happen next. What type of residual time income do you possess? So if you choose to just eat horribly, as a choice of time and decision making, right? Oh, I have time. I can go eat sweets, eat cotton candy, right? At some point in time, yeah, you might have this sugar high for a moment, but now you're burned out. So now you can no longer get anything done, and now you're wasting time based off the time and the choice you had to make on what you were about to consume health-wise. So that's why I believe they're so interchangeable. It's the same thing. Like, if I choose to just hang out, party, and there's nothing wrong with partying. I'll never knock anybody for having a good time. I think we got to live life the way we see it. I'll never judge people. But sometimes when I would go out, I'd be like, man, all right, I'm out and it's cool. However, I could have got XYZ done. Right. I really wanted to, because I would get more of a residual benefit from. But, I've changed over the course of my 30s of, all right, like I can try to loosen up a little bit, try to have fun, because sometimes having fun periodically does give you a residual towards, all right, I'm not so like work centric, because I would never want to get to my old age and be like, oh my God, well, I really worked hard and I never really went anywhere, did anything.
Yeah. And then next thing you know, you're like that 6-year-old in a club.
Yeah, just mad identity issues, thinking you still 20 or something. And you're like, nah, you OG.
And it's funny because you talk about time as an asset. And what do assets do when it comes to accounting?
Assets, they pay you back.
Well,
they
also
provide income. Also,
in addition to that, they depreciate over time.
Yeah, they can.
So
not always with real estate.
And the thing, the interesting thing is with time and also with health, they usually depreciate over time, because the older we get, the more health issues we have. Even if you're like the healthiest human, genetics come into play and you could have something. But as you get older, you start becoming very selective of your time, because we spoke about the timeline. You don't know what your timeline is.
Nah,
don't know if you don't know what if you're living to 40, 50, 60, who knows? And on the previous episode, we talked a lot about death.
Mm-hmm.
So before we even started this podcast, you were mentioning how you start to really think about death a lot. Not in a sense of like mental health wise, but in a sense of just everything in your surroundings. And I remember you specifically saying on one of your statuses on Facebook, I've been to more funerals than weddings. So talk about that.
Yeah, at my age, the numbers add up, right? Because you know, you can care about people, but people don't always care about you to invite you to these special occasions. Or, you know, again, I understand the logistics of it. Yo, weddings ain't cheap. Neither are funerals. And too many folks aren't investing in life insurance as well. But that's a whole other topic another day. But these things happen. And so, like, the older you get, the more you see people falling like dominoes. And it's unfortunate, but, you know, it's a reminder that any given day, any given Sunday, any given Monday, any given day in the week, it could be your turn. The clock don't care about none of us. Time is a concept. It's a construct of this system. So it is so valuable for us to be aware of that and to make the most use of the time that you do have because of that. You know, just the other day, you know, one of my friends that I grew up with, who I talked about and previously also talked about in the video that I did, you know, Sincerely Jones, you know, he would have celebrated his 40th birthday the other day.
Wow.
You know, that was literally just the other day. And, you know, I have the privilege of still being here to be able to talk about it. You know, I was able to, you know, reflect on my childhood experiences with him and us as adults and being parents and stuff like that. But, you know, he's not here anymore. I am. That's a privilege. Every moment is a privilege. You know, that's a privilege to be able to see, you know, people live, to see people celebrate, to see people go through things, and just that experience. And so to me, it's almost foolish to not be somewhat inspired or motivated by having the privilege of living life every day. And for some reason, I don't know why this is, but I feel like just generally speaking, we take sunrises and sunsets for granted. When's the last time you sat and watched the sunrise or sunset?
Honestly, it was at a photo shoot because I was literally at the sunset.
The one that we were talking about that one day. Yeah, and that was fire too.
So that was the one day I had to just stand there and kind of wait for the sunset because I was supposed to take the photo at that time, but never was it like intentional unless I was like, you know, taking out a shorty for a date or something like that. But
and that was more business.
Before then, or actually now that I think about it, when I go on walks, because I like to sometimes go on walks between like 6, 7 or something along those lines, and then I'll start seeing the sunset, but I never actually just sat down and just kind of appreciated that.
Yeah, it like literally like what if the sun decided like, y'all, I'm done, I'm checked out.
Yeah.
Y'all didn't appreciate me, I'm signing off. Dun, 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 dun.
You hear the windows?
Yeah, AOL showing my age, 30s, brother. But I'm saying, like, I feel like those things are valued enough, and I think just throughout time I've grown to develop like an appreciation for a lot of these like little things. So plenty of times, even the one photo shoot I did for a project, and I go to this one bench in the game preserves and I'll just chill out there and I watch the sunrise, I watch the sunset, and just kind of like appreciate the process because it's literally a mirror of life.
Yeah.
When you're born, your sun is rising.
Yeah.
When you're dying, your sun is setting. Lights out, brother.
Yeah. So my other question is, if you were to meet Nyce Jonez in his 20s and now that you're 30, besides time, besides parenthood, what's another thing that you would want to give as an elevator pitch? Let's say you see Nyce Jonez in his 20s, and you're stuck in an elevator and you only have to give him a certain amount of advice. What would that advice be?
Honestly, really the biggest thing is unlock your creativity. I've always been a creative. I've just not always fully embraced it and just didn't know how through being such an introvert. But I think that's why when I worked in advertising, it was a good match made in heaven for that discovery process, because I love information. And as much as I'm introverted, I enjoyed talking to the business owners where I'd ask them questions and learn stuff. And then it's like, wow, you have this wealth of knowledge. I was adding value to all their businesses through advertising, but also like I was giving them game beyond my job. Like, oh, you know, if you change this process or you did this, and I was just aware of a lot of other things, they got a lot of value out of it. And, you know, I was hustling the media packages in the recession. You know, I worked in advertising from, what year was that? 2008 to 2011.
Wow.
And the stuff we're talking about in the economy now, was happening back then, except now some of these things seem a little bit more darker. But you know, I was hustling those media buys, and it was because of my creativity and talking to, you know, the business owners the way I did, and just, you know, writing, you know, different ads, changing their designs and things like that.
So would you say you in your 20s, you would have told yourself to be even more creative or more open? Was that
even more creative?
What was holding you back? You feel like at that time, was it fear? Was it situational based? What exactly was holding back your creativity?
I would say it was a combination of all of it. You know, having success early on for me, because I was fairly young, having my graduate degree, fairly young, having the job I had in advertising and being successful at that, and being able to, you know, get a house and stuff like that. You know, I experienced a lot very early that wasn't necessarily the same as some of my contemporaries. So, it was a rush, but I was always looking for like the next thing, always looking to build up. But, you know, being able to just kind of exercise and work on some of the ideas that I was having and express them and explore them. You know, I have tons of ideas that I wrote down, but then, yeah, I didn't necessarily lean into them the way I lean into things now. So like, you know, and also regardless of having a degree, I didn't have the resources or the people around me that looked like me, were from where I was from, that did things that were even similar to what I wanted to do. I was the one kind of in the front.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's a gift and a curse to be first.
Yeah, that is very true.
It's kind of a bar, but I'm not a rapper.
I mean, when you go to if you think about it, when you go to war, the people that usually are on the front lines,
bruh, yeah. So it's a lot, you know. So there was, you know, people that I could look up to, and but they were also in much different spaces than I was in. You know, like my cousin, his birthday was also the other day. Shout out to my cousin John. But you know, he was in the Army. He traveled the world, and I used to think that was just so dope, you know. But I also knew that, you know, going to the Army really wasn't something that was necessarily for me.
Right.
But I liked it because, you know, he had a leadership role.
Right.
He traveled. His family was always right with him. So I thought that was amazing, and, you know, that was a beautiful thing for him, and it's, you know, paid a lot of dividends for him and his family. So overall this time, but yeah, I think just kind of leaning into it. This is why so much I'm always preaching like death to comfort zones, and recognizing that, you know, there's 3 versions of me at any given time. I get to learn from the past, I get to stay present and learn from that person, but I also get to make moves now that me 10 years from now will be thankful for. So that takes a lot of presence.
Okay. So what would be next on the list?
Honestly, for real, is just doing things you loved to do as a kid. You know, I feel like doing those types of activities, and a lot of people will phrase that as, you know, channeling your inner child, healing your inner child, things like that. Because when you're a child, you're like super free. You're not really thinking about criticism or judgment as much. You're taught those things. The world is shaping you. Don't do this, don't do that. Like, you're hearing, you know, a million no's before you become an adult. So that sets your boundaries of what your belief system is. And then sometimes the adults who don't get a chance or never take the chance now put their fear on you, because they're projecting what the wounds that they're feeling as their child, because they got limited the same way.
Right.
So that's why I say being in touch with, you know, the things you've thought about or love doing allows you to kind of like recreate that experience moving forward. So, you know, I was always a creative, even as a kid. I just really didn't show it to a lot of people, but it used to be mad funny where I would hear different songs, and sometimes my one boy would be at my crib with me, and I would like remix it on the spot, just making up like just funny lyrics or like spoofing it. And I believe that I got that type of like concept from watching And Live in Color so much as a kid, because I love, till this day I still love sketch comedy. Look, I even showed you in my notes how many like random sketches, and that's just like one note. I have tons of sketches.
Sketches coming soon.
Yeah. So, you know, and the thing is, even when I took my creative writing class a couple months ago, you know, I had a ball with that because I was writing dialogue and stuff, and I was like, yo, this is mad funny. But I can like picture scenarios. So like even the people that I work with at my day job, I come up with stuff on the spot, and they're like, yo, how the heck did you like create this whole scenario just on the spot? But then I have to think about it like, yo, I've literally always been that way, but it would just go off in my head. I didn't tell nobody unless it was friends I was really close with. And then it was like comedy hour. But when people used to say I was funny, I'd be like, nah, I'm not funny. Like, what are you talking about? I'm just this quiet, shy kid chilling. But then after a while, I'm like, nah, I'd be really like painting a picture real quick. And so like now it's like I really want to express more of that because it's always been there. I just never really tapped into it. So I think that's a big one to me, is just, again, like tapping into and like really sitting with like, what did you love as a kid? What books changed your life? What movies changed your life? What things made you feel alive? What things made you feel a little weaker inside, and trying to get through all those things?
I think the most interesting thing that you said about that is the fact that you want to feel a little bit more free, just like how you were as a child. And the reason why I think that is because I think as you get older, you obviously have priorities. Mm-hmm. You obviously have responsibilities. Mm-hmm. But you forget to make that fun or that freedom of creativity a priority as well, because people are constantly living day by day, working their job, probably watching something on TV. I would say a good majority of people, they usually watch something on TV and relate to a show because it's something more exciting than what they have their going life on in their life. And same thing with video games, because it's like, you know, you're going outside of your world, your current reality, and kind of going into this other reality where even if you take a risk in that reality, it doesn't affect you directly.
No, it don't. And people are afraid of risk, but the only reason they're afraid of risk is from an older person that never took risks.
Yep.
Putting the fear of the risk onto them. Like, bro, everything is cyclical. Everything's designed. You hear no 10,000 times before it's your time to do some stuff.
So
it's simple.
So the interesting thing is, like, even when I watch TV now, I always think about, like, and this is a weird way to think about it because I'm also like a really big cinema nerd. I'm witnessing someone on their grind and on their purpose, because I go outside of that reality that they're in, or the story that they're telling, and I'm like, well, this is an actor. This is probably someone that's been trying to do this, and they're doing it. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I check myself, because I'm like, you know, there's times that I need to decompress and I could watch a show, but when I feel like I'm just wasting time, I check myself and I'm like, look, I'm watching Michael Jordan right now, and I'm sitting in the sidelines.
And I never like that.
Not for my personality. Some people are good watching the game. Some people are good rooting for the teams, making bets. I'm trying to be in the game.
Yeah, same.
Trying to be MJ.
Yeah, I hear that. You're like Michael James, not Michael Jordan.
All right. You're like Michael Mid.
Yo,
you're Eminem.
You're Eminem, Michael Mid. Hey man, if you played a sport, I don't know if they had a helmet to fit your big head, bro.
Oh man, now we getting into this. But now that we mention it, we're gonna do a special shout out to our boy Lamar Watson for providing us some clothing.
For sure.
For this episode.
Mr. Make a Statement.
Make a statement.
We'll definitely appreciate that, because that's love. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
Got it on the sleeve and all that. You got the hat. I know.
Yes. And
out.
And shout out to Big Bang 2. I copped this at the mall the other day. They're doing the collab with the Lehigh Valley Legends with their new logo design of Be Legendary, which I rock with. And I got to cop one of those. So shout out to them.
I love that. And seeing that's great, you know, supporting entrepreneurs supporting us.
Yes, sir.
It's the stuff you love to see.
Yes. Support and love in the valley.
Power in minds, one episode at a time, but also a power in entrepreneurs that stay on their grind.
Bars.
Something like, you know.
Numero 5.
But yo, back to that point real quick.
Okay.
You know, people be thinking I'm weird. I don't watch sports like that. Yo, and NBA is my favorite sport, so I do watch a little bit more during playoffs. But like, I haven't really consistently watched football in about 7 years.
Yeah.
And people still text me to be like, your Cowboys suck, da, 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 da. And I'm like, bro, I have no idea what's happening. So yes, I was a Cowboys fan, but I don't really watch football.
It's weird, but I rather, instead of watching the game, I rather watch the documentary of the player that got there.
Yeah.
I'd rather watch the
love the
story,
docs.
buy their book.
Yep.
Just because the amount of dedication to make it that level, to make it to the NBA, to make it to the MLB, to make it into FIFA, to make it to the Olympics.
Dedication, hard work, plus patience.
Exactly.
Nipsey.
Yeah, you more like Minty Hustle.
Don't do this.
You guys are gonna understand the reference. But yeah, if you think about how much work an athlete, professional athlete, puts in,
20,000 hours. Easily. Way more.
and not to knock anyone's hustle, but I met guys that wanted to be in professional sports. And same thing with business. People that wanted to be entrepreneurs, but they lack that discipline. They lack that drive. They lack that. It's more than just talent. It's more than just skill. It's just that dedication, just like you said,
Yep.
and that willpower.
I love that song. 'Cause
Man.
that's Nipsey and Kendrick. But
Yeah.
what's that quote? Hard work beats talent when talent don't work hard.
Yeah.
And it's true. There's so many talented people you can meet that just, it's very natural for them. But then sometimes they're so good at stuff, they just won't work hard at it and just have this expectation. And, you know, it doesn't really work that way. But that's, to your point, like, I can show you notes from when I was a teenager. As much as I love basketball, I always wanted to be a team owner. I thought Jerry Buss's story was fascinating, of the little bit that I was able to read about at that age.
Yeah.
So then when they dropped the Lakers show on HBO, I was blown away by that. So I was like, oh wait, now I get to see like an adaptation of how he got the team, and it was just all like this, just a lot of wild stuff. And
Right.
before that show ever came out, I was fortunate enough in COVID that I was on a Zoom with Rodney Barnes, he was either director or producer of the show. And it was like a small Zoom, so there was only like 20 of us on there, and he was just talking about his career, you know, working in film and being a storyteller and writing comic books. He has a podcast, like he's all over the place, which I think is amazing. There was somebody else from Howard on that Zoom. I think it was that's a shame, I can't remember homie's name. Anyway, it was amazing. And it was him and then someone else from the music industry. Oh, it was Young Guru, Jay-Z's engineer.
Okay.
And just to kind of hear how they talked about how they took risks, how they took opportunities. And you know, even though it was kind of like foreign for them at the time, they kind of just removed the fear part and just went forward and just took leaps and just made the connection, just kept moving forward constantly no matter what obstacles came. And it was just like that discipline and dedication to just continue to move forward. And sometimes that's the way you win. But
Yeah.
you know, sitting on the sidelines and watching everyone else play is not going to do it.
Nope.
So that's why I wanted to circle back to that, because some people think I'm weird. I don't watch much TV. I don't watch much sports anymore. I'd rather participate in different ways. And like you said, I don't watch the Hitsville documentary about Motown like 50 times during COVID. I'm just blown away at the forward thinking that was done for them to, you know, create the Motown sound, which literally changed music forever.
Yeah, for sure. Because so many genres came out of that.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Barry Gordy, man. I feel like he doesn't get talked about enough, but you know, just to give people a little snippet, the main thing that got me was my man's was working at Ford Motor Company in Detroit, in the factory, putting together cars, seeing the process in which everything was organized and everything had its own compartment in which parts came in, the way they put together the cars. And then he had this idea like, wait, the way this thing is so specialized, we can put music through the same exact process. And that's what they did. And then out of it, they had this unique process with all the raw materials, with songwriters, producers, artists, put it all together at the end, have a song. But then at the end, quality control. They had a committee. They would argue over the songs on the positives and negatives before they ever put anything out. And it literally reshaped music forever, which is why I believe QC is QC now, which is quality control music, with peeing them. So, and they were also under Motown for a little bit before they just did that deal recently. I believe it was for close to $1 billion or something crazy. But yeah, that just blew my mind.
So, relating it back to your 30s, what's number 5 that's gonna reshape your 30s or reshape someone's 30s, just like Motown?
For me, after addressing all those other things, is honestly just love on your loved ones. Loving on your loved ones, love on the things that you love to do. Just embracing all those things that I shared. But at the center of it is so much is just rooting in love and passion and just like being pure. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I crack a lot of jokes. I'm sarcastic. This guy keeps pointing to the heart on his chest.
Because you're saying at the center of it, love.
Yeah. I mean, it's important. So like when you approach everything with that pure intention, like, emotions are a spectrum. On one end you have love, extreme positive, right?
Yeah.
On the other end of that spectrum, what do you got? Another 4-letter word.
You
Hate.
got me. Hate.
Hate.
I was like,
Love, hate. And not to say you're a hater, it's just I'm right hand dominant, so naturally I'm gonna go this way. Somebody gonna be like, oh, see, they don't like each other. Pod Wars 2023. It's going down. But yeah, you have love, you have hate, and then you have a mixture of things in between. So it's like, do more of what you love. Be around more of people you love. You know, and I be doing this sometimes on social media. I realize, thinking about it now, I haven't done it in a while, but I be challenging people to, text somebody you haven't talked to in a while and give them their flowers. Just tell them something you appreciate about them. Tell them something you love about them.
Appreciation text, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And there's times where I've done that to people, and then I maybe haven't talked to them in a while, and they're just like, yo, I really needed that.
Word.
And I'm always surprised because I'm like, yo, that took me a minute, but it just might have changed their entire trajectory of that day or week. You just never really know what people are going through. So it's like, I always say, I like to go to extremes. So I'd be like, if you have people out there that you think about, that that if they were no longer on this earth and something happened to them, that you feel that impact, then you should reach out to them.
Yeah, and it has to do with energy too, because like everything's a transfer of energy in life.
That's facts.
So if you're like on a positive wave and you're sharing that, like you could really impact people. You could even some people that are negative, they might have their reasons of why they're negative, but getting in touch with that old friend. A lot of people sometimes when it comes to old friends, you lose communication. It might be for a specific reason, but sometimes it's just the fact that one person's waiting for a text and then the other person's waiting for a text, and then that friendship is just lost.
Weird games people play.
Yeah, especially today, man. Like today I feel like everything is based off of Facebook. Like, yeah, because when people get removed off of Facebook,
bruh,
or Meta, whatever you want to call it,
or like Meta.
Oh, Meta, yeah, or you get the unfollow. Man, people take that like you unfollowed them in life,
bruh. I seasonally, every year, I had certain months I literally deactivated my social media accounts. Right, I used to have people hit me up. Oh, I went to go to your page, or I went to send you a message. Did you unfriend me? Did you block me? And I'd be like, bro, I've literally never unfriended or blocked anyone. The literally only people I ever blocked are spam accounts on Instagram that I noticed, and I'm like, bro, no, I'm not doing this. Yeah, that's it. I don't unfollow anyone. I don't unfriend anyone. I don't care that much. I don't go to people's page who I maybe had an issue with or we fell out or whatever. I don't go searching for stuff. Regardless of what things happen, if I've shared time and space with someone that I know most of it was positive, I actually sincerely care. When I hear people go through stuff, I sincerely really care. It's unfortunate, but man, life's bigger than that. So I always say move in love, man, and you get the residuals all day.
For sure. It's definitely like a law of attraction type of thing.
Most definitely.
So could you give us one last bonus one?
A bonus one? Mm-hmm. Yo, joke and smile as much as possible.
Okay.
Yo, laughter has so many healing benefits. And I didn't realize this at first, why I joked around so much, but literally when I worked in advertising, so advertising, my job was, I believe it was 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. At 10 o'clock, we were supposed to take a 15-minute break, 10 to 10:15. Lunch, we had break 12 to 1. Then we had another 15-minute break from 3 to 3:15.
Mm-hmm.
Literally like clockwork. My 10 to 10:15 break, because again, I worked on the phones. I'm getting cursed out all the time. I'm getting told no all the time. I'm not closing deals all the time. So it's, debilitating.
Sheesh.
10 to 10:15, I was watching YouTube stuff to laugh, or I was messing with other people on the sales floor, cracking jokes, just roaming around, spreading joy. I didn't realize that there was a whole science to that until I got older, and I was like, oh wow, like this is really why sometimes I'm just like joking or smiling, because in those types of jobs, it's draining to be getting rejected all day long. And you're kind of waiting for that moment of joy when you get a sale, or you're so excited that something's moving forward, or you design this new ad for someone or whatever. And then your managers are always beating up on you verbally. They're like verbally abusive. You suck. You're this, you're that. Like, bro, no, I'm not. Like, I look at the stat sheet. So, my management didn't necessarily always agree, with me. And that's cool. Like, they were managing based on how they were taught.
Right, exactly.
Sales environments sometimes can be very toxic. But when you know who you are and you know what your worth is and what you're doing, it doesn't really affect you as bad.
Toxic positivity. Single coming soon.
Here we go again.
So I'm gonna test your copywriting skills.
Oh God.
All
this
right.
guy, really?
So that top 5 list plus the bonus one, if you had to turn it into a phrase to sum it up. All right.
To turn my top 5 plus a bonus into a phrase.
I'm trying to hear that Jones GPT.
Jones GPT's crazy. Wow, that's a good one.
I'm putting him on the spot. I'm giving him a few seconds. And this is something you got to tell Nyce Jonez in his 20s.
Something I tell Nyce Jonez and time to be creative. Do things all in love for your kids and legacy.
I love it. You heard it here first. You heard it here first.
That's not easy. I would have loved to try to turn it into an acronym somehow, because as much as I hate that everyone keeps using acronyms, the reason why they use them is because it's easy to retain.
It's memorable too.
Very memorable. So.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for tuning into another episode. I hope you definitely got a lot of gems out of that. And remember, subscribe for more content so we can keep bringing you more gems and building this community.
Yeah, because I don't really want to sit here and have staring contests with y'all no more. And you know what? My daughter used to make me battle people at parties. I will stare you down. I will not lose. Shout out to my boy Tony Ortiz in his podcast, though. But I will have a staring contest, and I dare someone to pull up on me and challenge me. I will win. This is what we got to do. Because, you know what? Let's not make this awkward, guys. Click the button. Matter of fact, don't just click the button. Tell a friend to tell a friend, because we're trying to empower all of them.
Invite your ex to the pod. Invite your frenemies. Invite that toxic positivity to the pod so they can actually get some positivity and some gems out of this.
Some positivity.
Yeah.
Kermit takes a sip.
Toxic positivity.